1992 brought us the premiere of Home Alone. Two Barney and Friends started as a television series and in music. It's the year the band Blink-182 was formed. Meanwhile, in World Wrestling Federation, a new group of wrestlers is getting ready, but for them to reach the top of the company, World Wrestling Federation, they have to let go of the great superstar from previous years, Hulk Hogan. Shout out to Fublitox and Gabriel Ramirez Lugo for commenting. Leave your comment on this video and you could be the next one to appear. If we recall last year, we remember the World Wrestling Federation title was left vacant after the controversial ending between The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan. And the fictional president of World Wrestling Federation, Jack Toney, had decided that the champion would be determined at the 1992 Royal Rumbles. This would be the first time that the company's top title would be on the line in the Royal Rumble. While absolutely everyone wanted to be crowned in that Royal Rumble, I have to say that the Battle Royal was a 5-star match. It was spectacular and is considered one of the greatest of all time in the Royal Rumble. Before the final match, the Natural Disasters defeated the Legion of Doom for the Tag Team Championships. Roddy Piper would become Intercontinental Champion by defeating the Mountie, since Bret Hart, who was the Intercontinental Champion, caught a severe flu and had to lose the title days earlier. As a fun fact, this event would mark Roddy Piper's first victory in World Wrestling Federation. In the Royal Rumble, Ric Flair would show why he was considered the best wrestler in the world at that time. He entered as number 3 and lasted for over an hour. Many talents entered the ring, but none could handle Ric Flair. Even the Nature Boy eliminated several competitors himself. When Hulk Hogan entered as number 26, everyone thought that would be the end of Flair's incredible run. But it was Sid Justice who would eliminate Hogan, leaving him and Ric Flair as the last participants. Hogan, being a very sore loser, grabbed Sid Justice's arm and tried to eliminate him from outside the ring. Ric Flair took advantage of this and ended up eliminating him, winning the Royal Rumble and the World Wrestling Federation World Championship this way. Sid Justice and Hogan would start a feud on the road to WrestleMania because of this, while Ric Flair was getting ready to face Randy Savage. What worried Vince McMahon was the positive reaction from the crowd towards Sid Justice, and he was afraid they would boo Hogan at WrestleManias. Will WrestleMania 8 happen? Wow, that's a massive ad on the bus. At the event, Bret Hart would regain his Intercontinental title by defeating Roddy Piper, and Shawn Michaels would defeat Tito Santana. Michaels was originally set to face Marty Jannetty, but Jannetty was fired just before WrestleMania. Also, The Undertaker would defeat Jake Roberts, making him the second victim on his streak list, which up to that point wasn't even mentioned. Ric Flair wouldn't be so lucky that time, as Randy Savage would be the one to come out victorious and with the World Wrestling Federation title. In a tremendous match that lasted about 18 minutes, the online event of the night. Guess who would have it? Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice in a match that was promoted in many places as Hogan's last match. Later, it would be revealed that Hogan wasn't too happy with the large amount of boos he was receiving. That's why he left the company, but not before defeating Sid Justice. It can't be forgotten that there was a huge mistake in this match. And that's because Papa Shango was supposed to come out and attack Hogan, but he was late getting to the ring. That's how he arrived late and started attacking Hogan after he had already won. However, Ultimate Warrior would make his long-awaited return to defend Hogan, and that's how it would end. WrestleMania 8 within the World Wrestling Federation. For the second year in a row, sales were very low for WrestleMania. A local newspaper claimed that World Wrestling Federation gave away about 15,000 tickets in radio and television contests to fill the stadium, which held more than 62,000 people. After the lack of interest from Americans in World Wrestling Federation and the company's huge rise in the United Kingdom, with Bret Hart as its most popular superstar, World Wrestling Federation decided to hold its second most important event in the United Kingdom. SummerSlam would take place on August 29, 1992 at the legendary Wembley Stadium in London, England. With an incredible sold-out crowd of over 80,000 fans that night, the company decided to have two main events to make this an amazing show. One was aimed at the American fans, who would see Randy Savage face the Ultimate Warrior for the World Wrestling Federation World Championship. And the other main event would be for the fans in the United Kingdom between the British Bulldog and Bret Hart, who would face each other for the Intercontinental Invitational title. There were tremendous matches that night, but everyone was waiting for the big title match, where Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior, despite having a good match, had an unexpected ending, where Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect would come in to interrupt. Finally, Warrior would defeat Randy Savage, but by count-out disqualification. The title obviously remained in Savage's hands. Even though the fans in the United Kingdom ended up booing the end of this match and were not satisfied at all. Then came the final event. Vince McMahon would later say that this match was necessary so that the fans would go home happy. As a fun fact, the British Bulldog would reveal 5 years later that early that morning before the event, he was at the hotel doing drugs until 10 a.m. And he doesn't really know how he even managed to wrestle. He practically forgot the entire match and says he'll always be eternally grateful to Bret Hart for knowing how to handle the match. The end of the match was epic and the crowd's reaction was even better. David Boy Smith would win the title in front of his home crowd, and Bret Hart made him shine like a bright coin that night. Even though everyone thought the incredible rise of the British Bulldog was coming, that wasn't the case, because his problems with addictions would lead the company to fire him shortly after. On September 1, Saint Ric Flair would defeat Randy Savage for the World Wrestling Federation title at a televised event called Primetime Wrestling. But this victory wouldn't last long for the Nature Boy either, since a month later, Bret Hart would defeat him at a house show and become the company's top champion. The World Wrestling Federation's top title, passing from hand to hand, suggested that Vince McMahon didn't know who to make the official face of the company, and this was turning into a big problem. The fans didn't really understand why Bret Hart suddenly showed up with the World Wrestling Federation Championship out of nowhere. This was because the Hitman won the title at a non-televised event, and at that time, obviously there were no cell phones and video cameras weren't that common. Because of this, it was hard for them to understand how this really happened, but they eventually managed to adapt well to their new champion. Before being fired, the British Bulldog lost the title to Shawn Michaels. And this would make for another interesting match for the next Survivor Series card. A champion versus champion match, this time with only the World Wrestling Federation Championship on the line. Although Marty Jannetty had returned to WWE shortly before this event, there was speculation that Michaels would face him for the Intercontinental title. But before Survivor Series, Marty Jannetty was fired again. The card also featured Dick Bosman versus Nails, a former prisoner who was really scary and claimed that Dick Bosman had treated him really badly when he was in prison. The match would last 5 minutes and Dick Bosman would end up winning it. What people discuss most about this match is that after the fight, Nails went to Vince McMahon's office and tried to attack him. All of this happened for real and in a very violent way toward the boss, leading to him being immediately fired by the company. Undertaker, would he defeat Kamala in the first casket match in World Wrestling Federations? The new superstar Yokozuna would leave everyone shocked after beating Virgil in just over 2 minutes. At that event, the company, for the first time, did not give much importance to the traditional Survivor Series elimination match, but instead focused on the match between the two champions. In my opinion, this match is being very overlooked, but it's really incredible. Michaels showed that he could stand up to a great champion, but the Hitman reaffirmed his strength and technique by defeating Michaels and thus retaining the World Wrestling Federation title. This is how the year 1992 would end, and with it, the golden era was beginning to come to an end. Soon, new superstars would become part of the new generation, the same one that would help the company rise again in its upcoming major challenges. The torches had been passed from Hogan and Warrior to Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. But anyway, you should see all of that in the next year, 1993.